We want to welcome in now Christie Martin, an Ozempic user who has experienced that drop in cravings firsthand, and Dr. Jonathan Kaplan, who you just saw in that video. Thank you both for being here. Christie, I want to start with you. Tell us about your experience on Ozempic. You say that your urge to drink went away.
Absolutely. As a single mom, realtor who suffered some traumatic loss, I used alcohol as kind of a numbing drug at night to just reward myself and self-medicate, I guess you'd say. And it was becoming a bit of a problem. But when I started on the semaglutide, I noticed I had no desire for alcohol. It almost was repulsive.
Wow. Okay, so it's not just that the urge, the pull wasn't there during the day, but what would happen when you would actually sip on a glass of wine or have hard liquor?
I found myself just setting it down and not wanting it. It was almost like it was just something that I didn't want to finish the glass. I had no desire to pick up another glass or drink another glass. And it kind of just, it's not that it made me sick. It's just that I didn't have a desire to drink it.
Interesting.
Can't explain it.
Yeah, the allure not there anymore. Dr. Kaplan, I want to turn to you here. A couple of questions. First of all, are these just a few anecdotal cases that we're seeing out there? Or how big of a deal is this? How important is it that researchers really look into this link between Ozempic and not just weight loss, helping people with obesity and diabetes, but also people who've struggled sometimes for a long time with addiction?
These aren't long-term studies yet, but it's very clear from an anecdotal standpoint. We have over 600 patients in our program that we're hearing these same kinds of things from them, but then we're even able to crowdsource all of these comments from TikTok, where thousands of people are talking about their experience of biting their nails less, online shopping less, drinking less, smoking less. So it is not a really full, like, gold standard study yet. That's going to happen, but clearly there's just too much anecdotal evidence to dismiss it.
Yeah, and Dr. Kaplan, any indication on what is actually going on in the brain that would make the same thing that makes someone lose weight also apply to addiction?
It's really interesting because at first you think about like weight loss and not smoking. What does that really have to do with anything? But if you think of overeating as an addictive behavior, then it all starts to make sense that you're overeating, you're binge eating, you're smoking, you're drinking. Those are all potentially addictive behaviors. And so these medications, they think through some pathways in the limbic system, the reward motivation system, and maybe through the neurotransmitter serotonin. Those are what some of the theories are. But clearly they need to do long-term studies on clinical evidence showing that this works, but also some basic science data, basic science studies to exactly figure out what the pathway is of why it is working exactly the way it is.
And Christie, I want to go back over to you. What do you make of all of this? Why did you originally go on Ozempic? Was this an unexpected benefit or something that was even maybe more powerful than what you were originally hoping for?
Definitely more powerful. I didn't know what to expect. I had lost 32 pounds on my own, but as a 58-year-old woman in menopause, I was stuck for years at about 80, 75, 180, 175 pounds. And when I started taking semaglutide, I lost the rest of the weight, 32 pounds. So not only did I get a little thinner than I even anticipated, but just the fact that I no longer wanted to drink, which I had been trying to kind of slow that down, at least maybe just drink socially instead of having that bottle of wine at night when I got home from work, kind of a thing. And so it was definitely unexpected. And I got off of it for about a month and those cravings still have not come back. So I'm just as happy about that as well.
Wait, so Christie, I mean, that's hold the phone for a moment. So you've actually gone off Ozempic at this point, which is something that a lot of people have questions about and fear if they're thinking about going on this. And what has happened both in terms of weight and also alcohol cravings?
I did gain a little bit back because what I noticed was that the food noise came back. So, the food noise is something that people talk a lot about, and that is a real thing. Of course, you don't have an appetite while you're on it for, scientific reasons, but the food noise, it had started to come back. So, I was concerned about the alcohol aspect of it, but really that didn't come back. And I did gain a few pounds back, so I might look into using it as a, something that I do maybe once a month to maintain.
Yeah, that makes sense. I appreciate that. And thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.